The following is an exclusive presentation of News Radio KMAN, your home for K-State athletics. It's game time. This is The Game on News Radio KMAN.
Owen, do you have anything to say to Troy after this three-game series at Kauffman Stadium between the Orioles and Royals?
It was a heck of a battle, a great play by Santander on Saturday, and boys took care of business, and I don't think Zach Campbell caught an actual home run ball, so that's something we can all celebrate.
How do you have to survive and get a great play by Santander when you led 7-0 after 2 innings?
I couldn't tell you. I was sitting there in the seats, and I was like, man, well, this is going to be a fun game to watch. Knock Cole Reagans out in the second, and then here come the Royals. Watching Salvi hit a home run was cool because Baltimore didn't hit a home run on Saturday, but Salvi had a 3-run shot. That was sick. But yeah, that catch by Santander in the ninth was unreal. Because if that gets by, that's probably a triple at least, if he doesn't go all the way home.
I miss the days, by the way, of being able to sit in GA out in left field and taunt Tim Salmon. I'm just saying.
I almost went over and heckled Will Smith, but they didn't end up warming him up at all, so we decided not to. I was like, it's his day off.
Now, had I been there, I would have joined you on that one.
Did you get your 2014 AL champion replica ring?
I did. It's in the backseat of my car right now. I totally forgot it was back there.
You just got the one, huh?
I couldn't snag a second one, so I've got one.
Yeah, they're pretty tough about those things.
Might have to either rock, paper, scissors, or...
Oh, no, Troy can have it. Yeah, he's...
Okay, I was like, we can put it...
He's just barely a bigger fan than I am.
Just barely.
You know, well, honestly, these last couple of... these last 4 or 5 games, my fandom has...
imploded.
I wouldn't say imploded. It's just, it hasn't
waning.
been what it was.
It's waning.
It's waning, okay.
Yeah. Don't break that ankle jumping off.
Yeah. Welcome to the game. Mitch Fortner, Troy Coverdale, and Owen Burke. We're with you until 5:30. It's when we will start pregame coverage of the Cats, the Bad Cats, that is. Toyton Family Stadium as they host the Omaha Mavericks for a 6:05 first pitch. Comes after the Cats winning 2 of 3 against the 15th-ranked Oklahoma State Cowboys. How did PA announcing go on Saturday?
Went great. Good day. Jackson Wentworth was making quick work of things through the course of that game.
Yeah, I would imagine the game went pretty quick.
Yeah. It went.
Pitching was really good.
About 2.5 hours.
That's not too bad.
Yeah.
I heard you were a pain in the ass.
Yeah, good. Glad to hear that.
My guys on the inside said.
That I'm never being invited back. Yeah. Thank you.
No, I heard really good things, actually, about your work. So glad you got that opportunity. I spent my Saturday eating a lot of crab legs and shrimp. So that's why I missed the game.
That is a heck of an excuse to miss a game, in my opinion. That's passable.
Today, in this first hour, I'm going to bounce a little bit early, but coming up at 4:40, our video game draft, which is taking place on Thursday at 5:10. It is our annual draft to celebrate the opening round of the NFL draft, which is also on Thursday. That's taking place in Detroit. We will announce the draft order and our 2 special guests that we'll have on the show drafting with us three. We'll get to some K-State men's basketball news. There are 2 pretty major recruits coming into town tomorrow. And Coach Tang yesterday was not joking around when he said on the show on Wildcat Insider that he plans to have this class wrapped up in 2 to 7 days. Did want to lead off with something Wyatt and I talked about a lot off air, and it's just kind of funny how we work sometimes when you have such a discussion off air. It's like you're on air, and forget to bring it on air.
Yes.
I want to mention Terrell Johnson, former K-State football player. He was a Manhattan High Indian for Joe Schartz. He played actually at Manhattan the first 4 years for Joe Schartz from 09 to 12. At 29 years old, he passed away over the weekend. He was coaching at the time high school level. He went from Mill Valley to Shawnee Mission South, just 29 years old. Don't know the cause of death, but certainly want to take our time to pay our respects. 6'1", 312-pound. He was a senior in 2016. He played a couple of years at Hutchinson Community College. And in 2016 was named first team All Big 12. He was second team All Big 12 from ESPN in 2016. And he was AP and Pro Football Focus, first team All Big 12 in 2016. And that was the year K-State set the school record for yards per carry at 5.27, and that was behind a guy like Terrell Johnson. Third all-time in rushing yards, third in yards per game, and seventh in rushing touchdowns in program history. That was a very strong rushing year for K-State, and one of those guys that led the charge was Terrell Johnson. And wanted to play this clip. I spoke with Joe Schartz, the head coach of Manhattan High football, on Sunday night, and it was a few hours after the news got out, and shared his memories of having Terrell Johnson around.
His smile was infectious, and what a great teammate and what a great friend. I don't think Terrell had an enemy in the world, and he was just one of a kind. And everybody that came across him, left that encounter feeling better. And I know all of his teammates and coaches just really enjoyed, what he brought to our team as far as making the process enjoyable. He's a great teammate, and will definitely be missed.
Joe Schartz mentioned the smile there at the beginning there. That's what I heard from everybody. Gigantic smile, a contagious personality where when you got around him, you're always in a good mood. Schartz then went on to talk about how he became one of the best to come through Manhattan High.
There's just no doubt that he's a heck of a football player. He's at the top of the list as far as offensive linemen that I've coached in the argument for being the best ever at Manhattan High.
He was a part of that same class with Deontay Burton for K-State. Or I should say out of Manhattan High, that both ended up playing football there at K-State. So we, of course, want to send our thoughts and prayers out to his friends and family who are, no doubt about it, and I can imagine the difficult time they're going through right now with this loss. Just 29 years old. Speaking of K-State football, obviously the Cats right now are patrolling the portal and shoring up some spots. We mentioned yesterday on the show that Jake Clifton reported by K-State Online that is expected to not play this year. He is a Mormon. He's Latter-day Saint and expects to take his mission trip, which could be up to 2 years. So, I mean, he was going to be chalked in as a starter, at least for me, a starter at middle linebacker. And he's coming off a season-ending injury late last year. And so, I mean, his K-State career could come to an end. It just all depends, but it does sound like he's not going to play this year. So K-State obviously has been recruiting some linebackers. They've been recruiting out of the portal, defensive linemen. And running back was an interesting position because running back is a young position for K-State. I mean, from Joe Jackson, it's just behind DJ Giddens. It's pretty young and very inexperienced.
Correct.
Very inexperienced. And it was a position I'm like, if they don't go into the portal, I think I'm okay with that because they got young guys to play running back. That can be quite electric. And I think with who they have a good opportunity to strike gold with one of these young players. And if it's going to be, Paskins, if it's going to be Joe Jackson, if it's going to be Devon Rice, who's from Las Vegas, or, anybody, I think they have a good opportunity of doing that. But tomorrow, or Thursday rather, they're scheduled to host a recruit from Utah State who is their leading rusher, and Devon Booth, who ran over 800 yards, had 6.7 yards per carry. So they are looking to boost this running back depth. And then a familiar face, a familiar name entered the portal today. Dylan Edwards, Derby High School, Colorado Buffalo. Interesting timeline because I think he really upset some K-State fans a couple of years ago.
Yeah,
You
definitely did.
don't say.
Because it was June 23rd, 2022. He commits to K-State. His dad, Leon Edwards, who played at K-State as a running back in the early to mid-'90s, come to K-State. He had a monologue about coming to K-State. You want to play with the best, you come to K-State. Well, it was just over a month later that Dylan Edwards decommits from K-State And it was about a week after that, commits to Notre Dame. 4 months later, in the December of 2022, Dylan Edwards decommits from Notre Dame, and 2 days later, commits to Colorado. Does play a freshman year at Colorado, and man, was he a star in that first game at TCU. It's the first year for Deion Sanders as the head coach of Colorado. Colorado is getting every big noon kickoff on Fox for like the first 3 or 4 weeks, it feels like. They are the darling of college football, while it was Futility U in Boulder for a decade and a half.
Yes. Yeah.
And all of a sudden, with the head coach they hired, they are a star. And Colorado won that game, and TCU was a top 25 program heading into that year. Did not have a good year.
No.
Colorado came out of that game on top of the world. Dylan Edwards was a big part of that because he scored 4 touchdowns.
Mm-hmm.
Now, after that, he played 12 games as a freshman, 321 yards and a touchdown on 76 carries, receiving 36 receptions, 299, and 4 scores. It wasn't the biggest numbers in the world, but for a true freshman at Colorado, that was actually some pretty strong numbers. And as a true freshman, though he did start 6 games, you probably would have expected more, but it wasn't terrible by any means. But now he's into the portal. And I think the reason he's in the portal is because maybe 2 reasons. One is that Dallin Hayden, who played at Ohio State, is coming to Colorado to play running back. Really good player.
Mm-hmm.
And also, it's a trend once again. It's like a max exodus at Colorado because now Dylan Edwards becomes the 30th player this postseason to enter the transfer portal from Colorado.
That's insane.
Something you and I were discussing, though, that I also want to note that is in play here, and it is NIL. Because, as you noted, Deion has made it clear that if you're coming to play at Colorado for NIL, that's not the way it's going to be. That the resources aren't there. Well, yeah, the resources aren't there. That's my point with it. The resources aren't there to be able to keep a player the caliber of Dylan Edwards content with being a backup when you've brought in a guy from Ohio State as well. And this gets back to a personal frustration of mine while being out there. For as much as I love the Denver Broncos, that by far and away remains a Denver Broncos state. The Avalanche have their supporters. The Nuggets have their supporters. But it remains the Broncos being the show. And it made me cringe that it was always seemingly that way, to the detriment of the college programs in Colorado and even to the high school programs at a point in Colorado, because everything is so focused on Broncos football, and they can't even get the damn uniforms right.
Yeah, like the lightning bolt looking thing on the sleeve.
Brutal.
Yeah.
Brutal.
You're saying you don't like your quarterback edition you made?
Not going there.
Oh, Zach Wilson?
Yeah.
That's pretty rough.
Yeah, I'm not even touching that, man. They can't even get the uniform right.
Worst case scenario, you dropped back 40 picks from the 6th to the 7th round. At best case, maybe you have a fairly decent quarterback.
Let me get to my next point, though, of this story, and that is, okay, now that he's entered the portal,
Yes.
if you're K-State, are you going after Dylan Edwards? Are you swallowing a little bit of pride after he may have what's the right way to go here? Maybe hurt your trust a little bit.
Ruffled some feathers.
In Dylan Edwards, ruffled some feathers.
Slighted you.
Yeah, that's a good one.
My answer to that is absolutely. Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Did you notice that there already was a couple of tweets on the timeline today?
Yes.
Of QB1.
Listen, and that's the thing. I understand. A lot of response to that was, listen, in an alternate universe. I don't. There's people. There's a lot of people I could mention here that have had this particular opinion, and that is appreciate his talent, but maybe this just isn't the right spot for him. You know what? I don't see it as not the right spot in multiple ways, because there are multiple ways you can use Dylan Edwards. DJ Giddens may be your starter, but you don't have to just use Dylan Edwards as a running back. He is a slot receiver. He is a punt returner. He is a kick returner. He could really help you out in many areas. And by the way, you can never have enough luxury in your skill position garage.
All you have to do is go back to that first game last year for CU against TCU to see the multiple ways he was used. He was not the straight running back on every snap. He was split out as a receiver for a good portion of that game. I want to say for about 40% of that game, he spent in the backfield. The rest of it, he was out as a receiver.
Yeah, and I think from a game-to-game basis to the season, you saw it in his numbers. Just over 300 rushing yards, just under 300 receiving yards. And talk about the need of receivers. We're not really sure if it's going to be a position that's figured out. Sometimes you just need to go get a weapon. And that's exactly what Dylan Edwards is, whether it's through the air, on the ground, in the return game. This is a guy that you will swallow your pride for, at least in my mind.
Just shoring up some depth questions is a part of this equation. Another part of this is Avery Johnson. These two guys, they played football together since they were young kids.
Yep.
They were on the same team for a while, and it's like Pop Warner or Pee Wee, whatever you want to call it. But since they were little, they played football together. Now, they played at different high schools. They played against each other twice as starters in Mays and Derby. Each won one of those games, and they were classics, high-scoring, showcase classics of their skills. And I've seen Dylan Edwards play in person twice. Absolutely electric. He was the fastest player in that 2023 class.
Yep.
The fastest player.
Yep.
And I've seen it in person. And until you see it in person, you don't really – I mean, you can kind of get an idea if you watch him on TV, but absolutely electric. If you're thinking back to the summer of 2012 and how you may have been upset that he decided not to go to K-State, it was Notre Dame and couldn't make up his mind, goes to Colorado, I think we absolutely get over that. And if Dylan Edwards is interested in coming to K-State and making it work once again, giving him a second try – you absolutely do, because I don't think you can just let go of that raw talent.
I look at it as your typical transfer. Honestly, let's be upfront about that, and that is a guy finds that first year at whatever school wasn't for him.
Yep.
Period. Why should you not consider that if a kid wants to come back into the fold?
I mean, this could just simply be, does he and his family, are they just looking for the bucks? They looking for the NIL money? We know K-State or Wildcat NIL has made absolute strides in providing more NIL money, and I think men's basketball and how quickly things are moving there is a little bit is evidence of that. Don't have anything, of course, in stone or anything to back that all up, but it's pretty strong feeling, and from what I've heard, it's certainly there. That may be a part of it. I think K-State is more ready to do and battle these sort of things, and Dylan Edwards could certainly be going in other directions or being tugged in other directions in NIL money, I'm sure is a huge part of that. But there's no doubt about it. You could always use more luxury, and I keep going back to this analogy, but if you look at the garage of K-State and what they have luxury-wise, there's always room for more. Avery Johnson's a Ferrari. You have DJ Giddens, who is a Rolls Royce. Jace Brown, to me, is like a Jaguar.
I like that one. That's a good one.
Garrett Oakley is a Range Rover. Dylan Edwards is a Bugatti.
Yeah.
Dylan Edwards is the flashy, expensive, fast sports car.
With a capital F, fast.
I'm just saying there's more room in the garage.
Yep.
But, and I wonder, when that news came out, what is Veneer doing? What was the reaction when Dylan Edwards jumped into the portal? Yes, they may have had some disagreements or, there was maybe some ruffling of the feathers and somewhat of a hurt relationship after he decommitted from K-State. I think you do swallow some pride, though, and you go after him because that is an extremely good talent that is still raw and didn't play at its full potential as a true freshman. But remember, that's another thing to remember. True freshman, different level of football, much bigger level of football than Kansas high school football. Much bigger difference. And there's no doubt about it. I think Connor Riley and Matt Wells and Chris Kleiman could figure out some very fun ways to use Dylan Edwards. So you absolutely go after him, in my opinion.
Yep.
Speaking of going after guys, we talked to Jerome Tang yesterday. They're going after guys. They're laying in the guys that they want. And he said yesterday on Wildcat Insider, he thinks they could get this class wrapped up in 2 to 7 days. Well, there's some evidence that came out today that just might be the case. Just need some commitments to come around. Those details are next. Coming up in few moments, give you the video game draft, which is coming up on Thursday in hour number 2. The draft order and our special guest that'll be coming on to draft with us to get ready for the NFL draft. First round on Thursday. Well, this Jerome Tang class for 2024, it's not going to have any of those, rode the bench their first year at a Power 5, Power 6 school, and they averaged a point per game, and they played in 8 games, or and they may have that potential, but it's going to take a lot of coaching to get them ready, and it's not going to be like that. Coach Tang might be right. This class might very well be done in this next week. And this is the last 2 years, and I understand the first year, I understand the second year. It just took a while to build that roster. Late summer is when these classes have been wrapped up. Heck, this class might be done with still like 50 to 55 days left in spring, which is crazy.
Yeah, before we get to May?
Yeah, It may also, depends on what Arthur Kaluma decides to do. He's going to obviously test the NBA waters. I don't think he's announced that yet, but I would imagine he would. He did last year. And see where he's at, get that feedback. Would it make sense to go ahead and get into the draft? Because he could be a second-round guy. So here's the latest details on K-State men's basketball and recruiting, because we found out in the recent days, including today on one particular player, that not one but 2 guys that are top 60 in the transfer portal will be visiting K-State, and that starts tomorrow. One of the names is another big, and somebody put it very well on social media. I saw this earlier today. I forgot who it was, but to explain the portal this year for basketball, and that is like it's big guy musical chairs. Heck, K-State's already had, 3 visits from forwards or from 5 that would play like the 5 position. And now Rutgers transfer in Cliff Amori, who's 6'11", big guy from Nigeria. This is somebody they've been working on for a little while, but had yet to schedule a visit. They never stopped. They kept pushing, kept recruiting, and Al Mori is scheduled to visit starting tomorrow. Let me tell you, this is a very major opportunity. He is the 7th best player in the recruiting class out of the transfer portal for 2024. That's according to On3. And as of right now, he is the 2nd best player available out of the transfer portal. And, Doug McDaniel, we look back and think, man, what a pickup that was. Top 10, top 20 transfer guy, depending on where you look. This may be a little bit bigger, of course, different positions, but from the rankings, this is huge, and huge in more ways than one. Averaged 10.5 points, 8 rebounds, 3 blocks per game this season for Rutgers. And I thought this was well said. He was a key cog for the Scarlet Knights because they got back to the NCAA tournament in 2021, he led them to that. He was a huge part in Rutgers finally getting back to the NCAA tournament. They made it to the round of 32. Now, they got it back to the NCAA tournament in 2023. This past season, they fell in the first round of the NIT, but that didn't stop of what he has been able to do in his time with Rutgers, and he will have 1 year of eligibility remaining. It would be just a 1 year thing with Amori, but what a major get he would be. Right now, K-State playing at that 5 position is very light because they've had Will McNair graduated, Jarrell Colbert, he's transferring, and then David Gasson, who I think would rather play the 4 like a stretch 4 type of. He's a stretch 4 type of player, but would be more comfortable at the 4. Well, at least you now would have an extra player, and this is obviously a priority. You need to go get a 5, either as a wing type or just a traditional center, which is what Cliff Amori is. You absolutely would love it, and he's very good, very athletic for his size. But going back to what I said previously, it's been a lot of work to just get him to schedule a visit. They never stopped. They never stopped pushing. He's finally scheduled for that visit. He looked at Georgetown. That's where he was at previously. And then he is still supposed to visit Alabama. But like I've said before, it's always a big deal when Coach Tang gets a player on campus because they have done a very solid job in getting the guys they want, especially already this year. Doug McDaniel, C.J. Jones. We're still waiting on the announcement from Brendan Housen, who was just a lights-out 3-point off-the-bench shooter for Villanova. That could be a very important depth piece that we still wait for the announcement. He has canceled a visit to Nebraska. That's good news for K-State. The other player is Arkansas veteran 6'5" wing and Khalif Battle. And I'm a big fan of this guy. And I remember watching him a little bit this past season because he is an electric scorer. He, once again, like a Doug McDaniel, like a C.J. Jones, can score at all 3 levels. He will drive it in on you one-on-one. He is tough to guard. You face up and guard him, he'll still score over you. Bucket getter. 6'5", 15 points per game, played in all 32 games for the Razorbacks this year. Did battle, and he has through his career, battle with some injuries. Been a couple of times he has missed a lot of games. He had one season-ending injury a handful of years ago. Originally played at Butler, then went to Temple, and then this past year was with Arkansas, where he shot 41%. He was 36% from three-point range. 3 rebounds per contest. He's a really good passer. I love his ball handling. What really stood out about his run at Arkansas was the last 9 games. His last 9 games, he went ham. Now, I'm not going to tell you what ham stands for. I'll let you go look that up. But in those last, it's a good thing. Because in the last 9 games at Arkansas, he averaged 26.6 points, 5.5 rebounds. He shot 48% from the field. And this guy got to the free throw line. In those 9 games, he took 109 free throws.
That's insane.
And he made 100 of them. That's 92%. That was an incredible last impression for his run at Arkansas, and Arkansas did not have a great year. Musselman is on his way to USC. Coach Cal is now going to be the head coach. And instead of Jerome Tang going to Arkansas, he's trying to get an Arkansas player to K-State while staying at K-State for a 3rd year. So going back to my original thought, this isn't going to be a class where maybe, you pick up a really, really good player and then it's depth pieces. No, I mean, if this works out in the way they want it to, you're talking about, boy, how do you not play a 9 or 10 guy rotation? How do you not have a different lineup every night? Because you absolutely could have a different lineup every single night. This could be big. And if it's true and they can get this class done in the next 2 to 7 days, excellent work by K-State. Excellent work by Jerome Tang and Wildcat NIL and the coaching staff. But we got to wait and see. Both Battle and Amori are scheduled to visit on Wednesday, and that could last a couple of days. I think a Battle will last Wednesday through Friday. I'm not sure about Amori, but we just got to wait and see. Still, the priority right now is to find that next big to play the 5 for K-State. They've already had a number of guys visit. Let's not forget Baba Miller, who I'm a big fan of. He is very athletic. He is very tall. He's more lanky. He can start you out from the perimeter and drive. And Terrace Reed from Michigan is still out there. So, there are certainly still a lot of possibilities for K-State. One of them is going to land, and I think with any of them they do land, we're all going to be a big fan of. Anything you wanted to add? I'm sorry, I saw you raise your hand a couple of times.
No, you're all good. I mean, Battle had a stretch of games. There's a 3-game stretch in there, 42, 36, and 34. This guy can fill it up. And when you have a guy, that's exactly to me what I kind of want in my 5-out offense, is just a guy that could go get one whenever he wants to, wherever he needs to go on the floor. And then you just facilitate around that because the defense is closing, doubles are flying everywhere, and guess what happens? Open 3-point shooters.
Well, to have that really strong 5-out offense, you need 5 guys on the floor that in any given time can be a matchup problem for the opposing defense.
And this guy is that.
You want to be able to have a guy that can drive, bring in extra defenders, and have the options. Have the options for a kick out. Have the option for a dish to the baseline. Anywhere you can draw that extra defender is going to bring a guy open. And if you have 5 guys that can make those similar type of plays where they can play 5 out from the perimeter and then going in, if you can have that kind of athleticism, it's the dream scenario, I'm sure, for Coach Tang to really solidify that 5-out offense. So we'll wait and see what happens. But this is a very fun week for K-State. It's a very fun week because this could be a very huge recruiting weekend for K-State basketball, and then we'll see what happens with football and the transfer portal. Some of it can happen fast. Some of it may take some time. But now Dylan Edwards is obviously in the equation of, do they go after him? How hard do they go after him? Can they land Dylan Edwards? As Avery Johnson, he was bringing out the photo album. He was showing the old pictures of the boys back in the day playing football, standing next to each other.
Yep.
Hey, remember these memories, Dylan Edwards? Remember how much fun we used to have? Let's bring that back. Let's bring it to K-State at the Power 5, Big 12, K-State level. Let's go out there and have some fun. So I know a lot's happening, and technically nothing has been set in stone or has truly happened, but it can happen. So it's just about let's stay tuned. These next 3 or 4 days are pretty big. They are pretty big. So let's wait and see what happens. We take another break to the video game draft, the draft order, and our special guest will announce that coming up next. Kurt Angle music, huh?
Yeah, how about that?
Just randomly playing it?
Yeah, no fact. Just our wrestling bet of the day.
Well, coming up on Thursday at 5:10, we'll have our annual The Game Draft. And it's a different theme every year. This year's theme is video games. It is the most popular competition platform in the world today. With online gaming is gigantic.
Huge.
Massive.
Right now. Arenas across the world are being built. And there are arenas bigger than just your regular sports arenas in the United States. Mm-hmm. It's pretty crazy. So what a perfect time to bring it up. And we'll have 5 of us drafting. And again, it's at 5:10 to celebrate the opening round of the NFL draft, which is also Thursday. So now it's time to announce our special guests for this year's draft. They'll be joining us live on air to draft video games. 4 rounds, snake-style draft.
Bill Snyder.
Bill Snyder couldn't make it.
Oh, okay.
Second option.
Because he has never played a video game in his life. Our first special guest is somebody we haven't had on the show in quite a while, but he has a very popular K-State sports podcast. You may have heard of it. It's called Bosco's Boys. Scott Wildcat will be on the show to join us to make some picks.
All right.
And then our last special guest is a weekly guest during football season. He is pretty major in Wildcat NIL. Curry Sexton. Abilene graduate.
Let's go.
Former 1,000-yard receiver in K-State football, along with Tyler Lockett in 2014. Yes, Curry Sexton will be drafting, because we've actually talked video games quite a bit here on the show. I used to make drinking games out of Mario Kart or something like that back in the day.
Heaven
so I thought,
help us.
when he told me that, I was like, man, Curry would be great in a video game draft. So want to thank Scott Wildcat and Curry Sexton for joining us in 2 days for this video game draft. But now we get to randomize our draft order.
Oh, yeah.
So again, snake-style draft, 4 rounds, 4 picks each. So it'll be Scott Wildcat, Curry Sexton, Troy Coverdale, Owen Burke, and myself in this draft.
Okay.
Owen, how many times should I click the randomizer here?
I'd say you give it a good old 4 clicks.
All right, here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so you ready for this, Owen?
Oh, bring it on. I'm either the first pick or the last. I know it.
Well, so the person that picks first, picks the first overall pick, does have to do their own monologue to the draft music as to why that video game was selected first overall. Troy did it last year with the 90s movies. I did it 2 years ago with Fast Food Draft. Owen Burke will be selecting first overall.
I knew it. I knew it was going to happen. I got to go pull the clips from last year so I can hear your speech and copy it.
Yeah, so get ready, Owen.
Copy it.
Get ready, Owen. You are picking first overall. Curry Sexton will pick second. Troy is picking third. Scott Wildcat is picking fourth, and I'm picking last in the first round, but I'll pick first in the second round.
Yeah, that's too strong. You could get 2 top players right there at 4, at 5 and 6.
So there you have it. Our first round is Owen, Curry, Troy, Scott, Wildcat, Mr. Wildcat, and then myself picking last in the first round. Again, our video game draft is coming up at 5:10 on Thursday. Don't miss that. It's one of my favorite bits of the year that we do every year. Very much looking forward to it. So you guys now have 2 days to prepare your draft boards, your big boards. And the goal is to not necessarily just draft your favorite video games. It's to draft a team of 4 video games that you think will beat everybody else's to win a vote on social media.
Do I have Mr. Irrelevant then? If I'm
also true.
Yes, you do.
Let's
so you
go.
get the first and last pick. Yes.
That is high pressure situations right there.
All right, boys, this is where I leave. I'm heading to Twinton Family Stadium. Owen and Troy take you the rest of the way. Go Cats.
Back for a final thought on the game this hour. Troy and Owen with you as we'll take you into the second hour. And I just found it interesting that it seemed like there were 3 big officiating items that came up yesterday or last night that we'll touch on in hour number 2 and have a little fun. But the post remnants of one of them also included, well, another altercation involving another Jokic.
Yeah.
You saw that, didn't you?
Yeah, of course I did.
Nikola Jokic's brothers aren't exactly known for being the sweetest guys.
No, not the most gentle folk from Serbia.
And apparently one of the 2 literally climbed over multiple seats at Ball Arena last night to throw a punch.
At a Lakers fan, I would assume?
No identification as to who he was a fan of, no.
Pretty solid guess, but it is a guess. And, no disrespect to the Lakers fans out there. There are some crazy ones amongst you. So.
Yeah, well, there is that matter. One of the things that you'll find is that there are plenty of Laker fans in the Denver area. That is always one of the most well-attended visitor games. Yeah, so no surprise if it would be a Laker fan. As of this afternoon, there had been no police report filed.
That's good news.
So the matter does remain under investigation, but here's Nikola sitting downstairs doing a press conference while his brother is getting involved in an altercation in the stands.
Yeah, not That's distracting stuff right there.
Yeah. And that's even before you get into the MPJ stuff.
Yeah.
With his two distracting brothers.
Yeah, he's got quite a distractful family. If I do say so.
What a couple of weeks that has been.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, both of those guys are going through right now in the middle of the playoffs.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, in Nicola's case, he's probably not all that worried about his brother, honestly.
No, I think he knows his brother can take care of himself, even if it does go sideways.
Did you see the commercial, by the way, that he is in for the new Despicable Me movie coming out?
I don't think I have. I saw him dressed like it to game one.
And that was part of the bit. That was part of the gambit, is that they showed then the commercial later on in the course of the game. I saw the video of it earlier, and it is hilarious. It is absolutely hilarious.
Be watching that during CBS, probably.
I keep telling them I'm not him.
It's not me.
Oh, banner day for professional officials yesterday, he says with sarcasm. We'll tell you why coming up in the hour 2. A look at the day's news on the way as we continue on the game. I talked a little bit about this earlier this morning on KMAN's Morning News, but I had a good laugh yesterday at midday because anytime you get to watch a Yankees manager get thrown out of the ball game for arguing balls and strikes, it's worth a good laugh.
Always true, especially when it's Aaron Boone.
Troy Coverdale, Owen Burke back with you as the game continues into our half hour, if you will, as we take you to 5:30 in coverage of K-State baseball tonight here on K-Man. Lasted all of 2 hitters yesterday.
Yeah, it's an earlier ejection than normal.
Did you see what actually took place with the ejection?
I did. There were some great camera angles on that.
Absolutely hilarious. And it becomes the starting point for the conversation about professional officiating.
Yeah, especially in baseball.
Hunter Wendelstedt had the rabbit ears so bad yesterday that a fan seated above the dugout got Aaron Boone ejected.
Yep.
And Wendelstedt doubled down in talking about it after the game, saying it was from the dugout, from in the dugout.
Well, and then I heard the enhanced, everybody's listening to their argument, and Aaron said, I didn't say anything. It was one of the fans, and he said, I don't care who said it.
Yes, that is correct. That was the quote. Yes.
So you could say, I would say he tripled down on it because he doubles down right there. He's like, I don't care who said it. You're gone.
True.
And then after the game said, no, it was him.
Yeah.
Come on.
Unbelievable. So that's how the day started in the world of officiating.
Yeah.
That's not even getting into the discussion of the weekend and strike zones and...
Especially, I was like, you and I could talk about strike zones.
Yes, we could.
Which I couldn't see it very well from where I was sitting, but boy, I got on Twitter in like 7th and 8th inning, and I was like, oh, these are bad.
Yeah. We'll get to that one in a minute as well. But then last night, you had issues in both the Knicks 76ers game as well as in the Lakers and Nuggets affair. To the point that the 76ers plan to file grievance, reads the headline, about officiating during first 2 games of series against Knicks. Yeah, they blew the lead late and lost by 3.
Yeah, it was not a pretty finish for Philly at all.
You saw the full details. Nick Nurse, the head coach of the Sixers, claiming he was trying to call a timeout and that he was ignored.
That part I didn't get to see the clips on. I remember that there were clips that came out, but I did not get to see those.
So here's what played out. The Knicks got a go-ahead 3 from Dante DiVincenzo with 13 seconds left to play. They had stolen the ball from Tyrese Maxey to begin with, as Maxey was unable to clearly catch an inbounds pass, fell to the ground as he was double-teamed by Jalen Brunson and Josh Hart. Hart took the ball away from him. Joel Embiid, Nick Nurse, others with the 76ers believe that Maxey was fouled. And that was where Nurse had attempted to call the timeout in the midst of the scrum before the basketball was taken away. The Knicks, of course, earlier this season protested one of their losses, that to Houston, back on February 12th, after referees determined after the game that a foul on Brunson that set up winning free throws should not have been called. The NBA denied, of course, the protest, saying a referee error was not the grounds to overturn a result. Yes, it was.
Yeah, I mean, if
yes, it was.
If that's not what we're overturning it for, then what situation are we ever overturning it then?
So Embiid was less than polite in his commentating on the officiating last night, utilizing an expletive. Then there's LeBron.
Yeah.
They blew an 18-point lead last night.
Yeah, they did.
It was a thing of beauty in Denver.
I like LeBron. That hurts me. Hurts my feelings.
Jamal Murray hits the fadeaway buzzer beater that gives the Nuggets the 2-point lead. James literally addresses the media, does not take a question, marches out after stating his piece. He felt that there was a foul on Michael Porter Jr. that should have stood but got overturned by the replay center back in the third quarter of the game.
Would that have fouled MPJ out? Or would there a foul later on that would have fouled him out?
No, but it cost 2 points. At the end of the day, it cost 2 points. And so he goes off on the replay center. D'Lo clearly gets hit in the face on the drive.
Yeah.
What the expletive? Do we have a replay center? It doesn't make sense. It makes no sense. It bothers me. Since 2020, the Lakers have shot 3 times as many free throws per game as their opponents.
Yeah, it's a pretty staggering statistic, unfortunately. I do think there was a foul there, but it's very I'm not a fan of losing a game and then, it being a 1-point game and being or a 2-point game. There are probably over 20 possessions in that game that you could have went back and found a 2-point discrepancy either way. Mm-hmm. So losing a game and just being but that play in the third quarter that cost us 2 points, that's the reason we lost.
That, I think, more than anything is that he wants to say his piece on the replay center.
Yeah, which is fair because to me they got that one wrong. But again, you cannot pin the loss on that. You were up 18, just win the game. If you don't want to lose the game, don't leave it in the hands of the officials. That
exactly.
Golden rule number 1, and a guy that's been in the league for 21 years should know that by now.
Jamal Murray couldn't hit the broadside of a barn through nearly 3.5 quarters last night.
Yep, he hit it when it mattered.
Holy smokes.
I think he is severely underrated. And I know we always talk about him come playoff time because he does elevate in the playoffs. I think he's just severely underrated in general.
Yes.
And that team does not run as well with and that's the thing that's so difficult is I want us to be it doesn't run the same without him. It did. That's why last year was so impressive because Jokic led that team to a 50-win pace without Jamal Murray.
Correct.
And now he's got him back. Everyone should be terrified.
Yeah. Anyway, so you have all of that, and we haven't even uttered the name Angel Hernandez at all in the discussion of officiating here.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, If you're getting into officiating discussions and you're not talking about the debacle that is Angel Hernandez,
then you haven't had a conversation about it.
Essentially, yes.
You can't assemble the Knights of the Round Table without the king himself. We're going to talk about officiating errors. You got to call the big dog first.
I have got to pull up the tweet, however. I admit to being someone who revels in looking at some of these numbers that come in on the replay or I should say on the umpires, excuse me.
Yeah.
Daily.
The reports that they do after each game. Yes, I love those.
One of the great things about social media is that some folks have really done a stellar job over time coming up with ways to share essentially, such as this account, ump scorecards.
I love this account so much.
Isn't it beautiful?
It is.
The chart is outstanding. The missed calls chart for Saturday's game at Kauffman Stadium for umpire Ryan Blakeney.
Yeah.
Looks like a glove.
Yeah, that's not good. It's the entire strike zone is covered.
The fact that on the television broadcast,
Oh, the first pitch.
did you see?
Yes.
Did you see what was said?
Yes.
Ryan Lefevre gets him with right down the middle for a ball.
Yeah, that was a great call. And a fastball right down the middle for ball one.
And he got on him again last night.
Oh?
Early on in a game and made a crack about the fact that there was a need for basically robot umps at this point.
I agree. You could be non-traditional and you want the umpires and it's part of the game and this, that, and the other. I'm okay with that. If we want to stay away from robot umps and be traditional, cool. I will lean towards the older baseball fans' preferences and do it. But that means we have to control who are going to umpire these games. I don't care how ironclad Angel Hernandez's contract is. If we're not doing robo umps, that guy can't umpire games. That is a problem.
Ryan Blakeney, Saturday night, had one of the lowest all-time scores on an umpiring scorecard since they have been sharing these.
Overall accuracy?
90%.
Yikes. Missed 10% of the calls in a game?
He called 148 of 164 taken pitches correctly.
Yeah, no. That can't happen. If you're against robot umps, we need better execution.
Overall consistency, 95%. So he was consistently bad.
That's a good thing that it wasn't heavily skewed for another team or not. That it was pretty fair, at least, with how bad he was. But
Here's where you really just want to crack up. 7 of 50 called strikes were true balls. 86%. 9 of 114 called balls were true strikes.
9 of them.
9 of them.
Man.
9 times. Oh, anyway, sorry.
90%.
AAA has the robot umps at this point.
The ABS system where you can challenge balls and strikes.
And the Big 12 announced today that they are going to be using a tracking system on their umpiring for the remainder of this season.
Okay.
Which I believe is going to be a very interesting step going forward.
I agree.
And I am intrigued to see how this plays out, especially with the, let's be perfectly honest, familiarity that you have with umpires in the conference. Mm-hmm. You see the same guys quite a bit.
Yep.
That's not a knock. That's just the way that the game breaks out.
Yeah, it is what it is.
So it will be very interesting to see how this does break down and what indications you get from it going forward. But it's good to see that here we are now into the second half of the conference season, and the conference is going to be a bit proactive here and test and see what they're able to see with this track system.
Yeah, how good and bad their umps are. Do they need to implement that ABS system? I think it's a great idea. And I also just think I've seen one too many times umps where it just turns into the ump show, and you kind of saw it with the Yankees game yesterday afternoon with Boone getting tossed. He didn't care who said it. I've seen it at the high school level and at the college level where, a kid reacts to a called strike 2, wasn't happy about it, and then, you got the catcher setting up in the other batter's box. They throw him a slider that bounces before it gets there. We're calling strike 3 because the ump wants to go home. He wasn't happy how the last pitch was called. That cannot happen.
Yeah, that's the old joke for me in the midst of a broadcast. Oh, he had a dinner reservation.
Yeah, that cannot happen.
Yeah.
You can't, whether it's want to go home and get me out of here, or it's, I don't like how you reacted to that last one, so I'm going to ring you up on this one no matter where it's at. That physically cannot happen if we're going to go forward with just human umps.
The Big 12 utilizing what is already in place, by the way, at Big 12 schools. It's called TrackMan. using the patented optically enhanced radar tracking to deliver accurate results from a system that is currently used by over 250 colleges around the country.
Heck yeah.
And will help in the evaluation of ball and strike calls in both the regular season and the conference championship.
Heck yes.
So it's not as if this is even an add-on for the Big 12 schools.
This
is already in place.
Yeah, we're just watching the data now versus we weren't watching it before.
Exactly. So this will be very interesting again to see how this plays out. And a final note on this, because it just literally came in. The last 2-minute report for the Knicks and 76ers last night is just going to make the 76ers that much angrier.
They miss a call on Maxey?
Ruled Maxey was fouled multiple times during the game's frenetic defining sequence.
Yeah.
And that Nick Nurse, yes, had in fact called for the timeout.
Yeah, I'm a Knicks fan, so I'm okay with it. I got lucky last night. What can I say?
Hey, Villanova boys helping the wrong team out there.
Yeah, no kidding.
Unreal. Anyway, back to wrap things up on the game in a moment.
You ready for some Ask Us Anything, my friend?
I am. Let me do one thing for a moment. Speaking of a Veach, Manhattan native and former K-State footballer, Laird Veach, the new athletic director at Missouri,
how about
announced
that?
Earlier today. He moves there from Memphis.
Congratulations are in order.
Absolutely.
All right, my question for you today is, what piece of advice would you give your 16-year-old self?
Wow.
That's a toughie.
Yeah, that is a tough one.
That is a toughie.
I'd probably go with something along the basic of, don't try to sleep in your car when you get the opportunity at senior skip day.
Got a bad story that follows that one, I would assume?
Just a night full of leg cramps,
that's not easy for a guy your size.
That's too deep of one to come up with a very quick answer to, my friend.
That's a 2 or 3 minute one. I do apologize.
Yeah, we'll have to work on that.
Fair enough.
We'll work on that. But at least I had a simple answer.
Agreed.
I'm not going to turn down the fact, I did the 6-pack of Jolt Cola one night or any of those things. K-State baseball up next. The Cats play host to Omaha coming up at Twinton Family Stadium. We're back tomorrow with a full show.